On a clear afternoon, in the heart of our most protected lands, a person vanishes. Every few days, they aren't just getting lost, they are simply gone, leaving behind an eerie and absolute silence. Investigators now describe this disturbing phenomenon as nothing less than a silent mass disaster for the nation. Across the vast North American wilderness, thousands of people have vanished into thin air over several centuries. These pristine landscapes, meant for recreation and beauty, hide a dark reality that many choose to ignore. One man, David Paulides, has spent his career cataloging these thousands of mysterious deaths and disappearances. His work, known as Missing 411, reveals a pattern that defies conventional explanation or simple logic. Paulides uncovered a staggering number of cases occurring in and around our most famous national parks. The sheer scale of these vanishings suggests a tapestry of mystery, with missing threads no one discusses. For generations, these stories remain scattered, untold, and buried beneath the weight of official indifference. Surprisingly, the U.S. National Park Service has only recently begun to compile a formal database on missing persons. This lack of centralized data has left grieving families searching for answers and void of information. Why has it taken so long for authorities to track those who disappear within their own borders? The wilderness is a place of high strangeness where the rules of the civilized world seem to dissolve. In these clusters of disappearances, even the most experienced hikers can vanish without leaving a single trace. We often think of our parks as safe havens, yet they contain secrets that remain deeply unsettling. This silent mass disaster continues to grow, claiming new victims while the world remains largely unaware. From the dense forests of the east to the rugged peaks of the west, the pattern repeats. David Paulides continues to peel back the layers of a mystery that the National Park Service ignored. But these aren't just statistics. They represent a chilling pattern that one man is determined to decode. It took a seasoned insider to finally notice the cracks in the official wilderness narratives. Enter David Paulides, an ex-police officer who traded his badge for a life of investigation. Now a dedicated author, he began documenting cases that the National Park Service could not explain. His journey into the unknown started with a chance meeting that changed his entire career path. While visiting a park, a concerned ranger pulled him aside to discuss something truly disturbing. This ranger spoke of bizarre disappearances that defied logic and left seasoned trackers completely baffled. To David Paulides, a disappearance is more than a tragedy. It is a vital data point. He does not look at every case, choosing instead to focus only on the impossible ones. His investigative criteria act like a Heimish sieve, catching only the most jagged, inexplicable facts. By applying a strict filter, he narrows the search to what he calls high strangeness cases. To ensure the purity of his data, Paulides meticulously excludes any cases involving foul play. If there is a hint of human intervention or criminal intent, the case is immediately discarded. He also filters out any individuals who had a known history of struggling with mental illness. Any disappearance that could potentially be a tragic case of suicide is removed from his research. The goal is to isolate events where a person simply vanished without a rational, earthly cause. Nature can be brutal, so Paulides is careful to exclude clear signs of animal attacks. If a predator is a likely culprit, the case does not meet his high strangeness criteria. He further narrows the field by removing cases where the person likely drowned in nearby waters. Any evidence of a body being washed away by currents disqualifies the case from his study. What remains after this intense scrubbing are the anomalies that form the missing 411 clusters. These are the victims who vanished under perfect conditions, leaving absolutely no trace behind. He often references the silence, that eerie void where technology and search dogs both fail. Paulides applied these strict filters to ensure that only the truly unbelievable stories remained. Why would a police officer walk away from his career to chase shadows in the woods? He realized that what is left after eliminating the impossible is often the most terrifying truth. As David Paulides mapped the impossible, a chilling pattern began to emerge from the data points. He discovered that these disappearances were not random events scattered aimlessly across the continent. Instead, the missing 411 cases seemed to gravitate toward specific, highly concentrated geographic clusters. These hotspots frequently materialize around the vast, protected landscapes of the National Park Service. Paulides identified dozens of these clusters spanning across the most rugged terrain in North America. One significant area of concern lies near the cold, deep waters of the Great Lakes. The shoreline and surrounding forests harbor a high frequency of cases that defy traditional explanation. Moving westward, the rugged peaks of the American wilderness reveal even more disturbing geographic concentrations. Yosemite stands as a crown jewel of the park system, yet it holds a dark history. In the granite shadows of Yosemite, hikers have vanished without leaving a single trace behind. Further inland, the geothermal wonders of Yellowstone hide a similarly unsettling secret within their borders. Despite its fame, Yellowstone is home to several clusters that Paulides meticulously documented and studied. Each cluster represents a geographic area where high strangeness is the only common denominator found. This phenomenon does not stop at the border, extending deep into the Canadian Rockies. Yoho National Park serves as a stark example of these mysterious occurrences in the north. Within Yoho's breathtaking vistas, the silence often masks the moment a person simply ceases to exist. Nearby, the expansive wilderness of Jasper National Park contributes its own share of baffling missing person cases. Jasper remains a prominent fixture on the map of clusters that Paulides has painstakingly assembled. Search teams, sometimes including elite Green Berets, have scoured these locations using advanced infrared technology. Yet, despite their efforts, the silence remains unbroken in these specific regions of high strangeness. Seeing these clusters mapped out makes the silent mass disaster feel terrifyingly tangible and localized. These specific locations represent the true heart of the missing 411 mystery across the wilderness. To understand the weight of these clusters, we must examine the case defining the missing 411 phenomenon. July 14, 1969, was a typical summer day in the Great Smoky Mountains before the heavy silence fell. 6-year-old Dennis Martin was a vibrant child enjoying a family outing in the deep, lush forest wilderness. He was accompanied by his father, his grandfather, and his 9-year-old brother on this fateful mountain hike. The family eventually reached the scenic Spence Field, a location that would soon become etched in tragic history. At approximately 4 p.m., the brothers decided to play a simple game of hide-and-seek among the thick brush. Dennis ducked behind a leafy bush, waiting for the perfect moment to jump out and surprise his family. Within the seconds it takes to blink, the young boy vanished into the thin mountain air without sound. When that playful moment never arrived, a frantic search began for the child who had simply disappeared forever. How does a healthy child vanish completely in the briefest of moments right under his family's watchful eyes? What started as a family's desperate hunt quickly exploded into a massive operation involving more than 1,500 searchers. The daunting search effort covered a staggering 56 square miles of some of the most rugged terrain imaginable. This monumental task was like trying to find a single grain of sand in a massive, unforgiving desert. The National Park Service led the charge, yet they were quickly overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the disappearance. As days turned into weeks, the investigation into Dennis Martin's case began to take a very strange turn. Amidst the civilian volunteers and park rangers, the elite Green Berets were suddenly called into the remote area. Curiously, these specialized military forces participated in the search while choosing to work in total, eerie isolation. Why were the Green Berets called in to work, of all things, in complete silence and apart from others? David Paulides later noted this strange military involvement as a recurring hallmark of the missing 411 high strangeness. Despite thousands of boots on the ground, not a single trace of Dennis was ever discovered in Spencefield. The mountains seemed to swallow the evidence, leaving behind only the cold, haunting silence of the vast wilderness. But while 1,500 people searched the ground, a family nearby heard something that changed the entire investigation. To understand the chilling silence of these disappearances, we must first look at the typical search and rescue mission. Every year, thousands of visitors inadvertently step off the beaten paths of our vast National Park Service lands. Most of these individuals are found quickly, thanks to the tireless efforts of dedicated professional rescue teams. Statistically, most people lost in national parks are located by search and rescue teams within a 48-hour window. This today serves as a critical baseline for survival in the unforgiving wilderness of North America. Rescuers utilize every tool available, from canine units to advanced infrared technology, to bring the lost back home. When a search extends beyond this standard time frame, the atmosphere among the searchers begins to shift dramatically. David Paulides began to notice that some cases didn't just miss this window. They defied all logic. While most people are found within 48 hours, The missing 411 cases seem to exist outside time. These anomalous disappearances occur despite the presence of green barrettes and massive investigative resources on the ground. The high strangeness of these events is underscored by how quickly the trail simply vanishes into thin air. Even with hundreds of searchers, the silence that follows these specific disappearances remains heavy and deeply unsettling. Why do some hikers return home safely while others leave behind clusters of mystery that span generations? The National Park Service records thousands of successful recoveries, yet these specific files remain hauntingly incomplete. We must ask what separates a standard rescue operation from the terrifying clusters identified by David Paulides. In the standard 48-tower window, footprints are found, voices are heard, and families are usually reached. But in the cases we are examining, that critical window closes without a single trace of the missing. This startling deviation from the norm is exactly what makes the missing 411 phenomenon so uniquely terrifying. While the data suggests a high probability of recovery, these specific individuals seem to have walked into another world. Understanding this baseline of 48 hours is vital to grasping the sheer impossibility of the Martin case. The contrast between a standard recovery and a permanent disappearance reveals a pattern that cannot be ignored. As we look closer at the numbers, the mystery of the silence in the woods only grows deeper. While searchers come to the area for a lost boy, a separate, chilling drama unfolded nearby. The official narrative suggested Dennis simply wandered off, but witness accounts told a far darker story. On that fateful June afternoon, the Key family was hiking deep into the woods towards Rohans Creek. They were miles away from the spot where Dennis Martin was last seen by his distraught family. As the afternoon sun began to dip low, a sudden, piercing scream shattered the wilderness silence. The time was approximately 5:30 p.m., just hours after the young boy had vanished from Spence Field. Following the sound, the Key family witnessed something that defied any logical explanation in the forest. They reported seeing a terrifying, man-like creature moving through the dense brush with unsettling speed. Most disturbingly, this creature appeared to be carrying a small child slumped over its hairy shoulder. This sighting occurred in a remote area, far beyond where authorities believed a child could travel. When the family reported their encounter, the official response was one of immediate and cold skepticism. Investigators claimed the distance from the disappearance site was simply too great for a child to cover. They argued that the rugged terrain made it impossible to reach Rowan's Creek in such short time. This dismissal by the National Park Service became a cornerstone of the official, narrow search strategy. However, one seasoned park ranger named Dwight McCarter refused to accept the official, bureaucratic narrative. McCarter knew these mountains intimately and understood that the wilderness rarely follows official government maps. He decided to test the impossible theory himself, to see if the Key family's story held water. Setting off from Spence Field, he began the grueling trek toward the location of the reported scream. He pushed through the same thick undergrowth and steep ridges that officials claimed were impassable obstacles. To the shock of the authorities, McCarter completed the entire journey in just over an hour. His successful hike proved that a determined captor could have hastily reached that distant creek on time. This revelation shattered the assumption that Dennis Martin must still be near his last known position. If a man-like creature could cover that distance so quickly, the entire search was fundamentally flawed. The Key family's report was no longer a wild tale, but a terrifying lead that was ignored. While officials looked for a lost toddler, they may have been ignoring a predator in the woods. The silence surrounding this sighting remains one of the most haunting aspects of the missing 411 files. Dwight McCarter's proof suggested that the search was looking in the wrong place from the very start. This disconnect between witness accounts and official action highlights the high strangeness often found in these cases. As the search continued, the gap between the truth and the official report only grew wider. If this creature truly existed, the search for Dennis Martin was never a simple rescue mission. If you believe staying close to your group ensures safety, these next two cases will haunt you. Imagine being tethered to a friend by a single rope, only to find the harness empty later. It is like a magician's cabinet, where the forest is the box but no trapdoor exists. Tranny Gibson was a typical high school student from Knoxville, eager for an autumn mountain field trip. In October 1976, she traveled with 40 classmates into the heart of the Great Smoky Mountains. As the group hiked the winding trails, Trenny remained clearly visible to those walking just behind her. Reports indicate she was approximately 20 meters ahead of her companions when she stopped on the path. In that brief moment, without a sound or struggle, the young girl vanished into the surrounding woods. 40 witnesses were nearby, yet none saw where she went or heard a single cry for help. This case remains a cornerstone of missing 411 research, due to the sheer proximity of the witnesses. Decades later, another impossible disappearance occurred on the icy slopes of Mount Rainier. In July 2010, veteran climber Eric Lewis was scaling the peak, physically tethered to two experienced partners for safety. Don Storm Jr. and Travalaine shared a single rope with Eric as they navigated the terrain. The three men moved as one unit, their lives literally connected by high-strength climbing gear. Upon reaching the 14,000-foot mark, Don Storm Jr. stopped to check on his tethered companion, Toei Soror. The end of the rope was empty, and Eric Lewis had simply disappeared. How does a person step out of a climbing harness while halfway up a vertical mountain face? A frantic search began immediately, scouring the unforgiving ice for any sign of their lost friend. Searchers later discovered Eric's backpack and climbing harness abandoned at 13,600 feet. His snow shovel lay nearby, yet there was no logical explanation for how he left his gear. David Paulides highlights these cases to show how the National Park Service struggles with high strangeness. These events defy the standard search and rescue models used by elite teams like the Green Beret. The silence in these moments is heavy, leaving investigators with more questions than tangible evidence. Can a person truly step into oblivion while their friends are standing only a few feet away? How do you vanish from a rope at 14,000 feet without your partners feeling a tug? Maybe you think this only happens to the unprepared, but the data tells a different story. We are often told that experience is our best defense against the many dangers of the wild, but for some seasoned experts, their deep knowledge of the wilderness couldn't save them from vanishing. These professionals treated the forest like their own backyard, yet they became victims of the inexplicable. Consider the case of Stephanie Stewart, a 70-year-old wildfire spotter working for Jasper National Park. Stewart was no amateur. She was a seasoned veteran accustomed to the deep solitude of the forest. On the night of August 26, 2006, she was stationed at the Athabasca Lookout Tower. This remote post sat 25 miles northwest of Hinton, far removed from the safety of civilization. Why would a professional like Stewart leave her secure lookout tower in the middle of the night? When investigators searched her cabin, they found a scene that defied any rational or logical explanation. Every piece of gear remained in place, except for a single missing item: her bed blanket. It appeared as if she had simply stepped away from her life, leaving everything else behind. This haunting disappearance forced the provincial government to fundamentally change how lookout towers are operated today. The safety of the tower had failed, proving that even secure locations offer no true protection. Another expert, Bart Sclayer, was a 49-year-old outdoorsman known for his exceptional survival skills. In 2004, Schlayer ventured deep into Canada's rugged Yukon Territory for a moose hunt. He traveled 175 miles north of Whitehorse, entering one of the most remote regions. Schlayer was a man who understood the rhythm of the woods and the behavior of its predators. Yet, the wilderness he called home suddenly became a predator that he simply did not recognize. When searchers finally located his camp, they were met with a gruesome and baffling discovery. Only 60 feet from his campsite, investigators found human teeth and scattered shards of bone. These remains belonged to Schlayer, but the rest of his body had completely vanished from the area. David Paulides notes that these experts often disappear without leaving a single trail for searchers to follow. Even when elite searchers like the Green Berets use infrared, the silence of these clusters remains unbroken. High strangeness defines these events, where seasoned professionals are plucked from the very places they know best. In Stephanie's case, nothing was missing from her cabin but a single blanket. It was as if she had just stepped away into the unknown. The silence at Jasper National Park was absolute, until Stephanie Stewart's vanishing shattered the mountain peace. At 70 years old, this seasoned wildfire spotter was far from a novice in the wild. On the night of August 26, 2006, the world outside her cabin changed forever in an instant. Stephanie was stationed at the remote Athabasca Lookout Tower, miles from the nearest civilization, located 25 miles northwest of Hinton. The tower stood as a lonely sentinel over the forest. Investigators arriving at the scene found a cabin that looked perfectly normal, yet deeply unsettling. Everything remained in its proper place except for one chilling and highly specific missing item. The only thing gone from the entire cabin was a single blanket Stephanie had used. No signs of a struggle existed yet. The veteran spotter had simply evaporated into the air. This was not just another missing person case, but a haunting puzzle that defied logical explanation. David Paulides notes that such clean disappearances often leave seasoned searchers feeling a profound dread. The mystery of the missing blanket became a hallmark of the high strangeness surrounding her departure. As news of the disappearance spread, a heavy silence fell over the entire provincial lookout community. The implications were so terrifying that they forced the provincial government to take unprecedented action immediately. Because her case was so haunting, officials realized the old safety protocols were no longer sufficient. New security measures were drafted to protect those who watch over our most isolated wilderness regions. The provincial government fundamentally changed how every lookout tower in the region would operate moving forward. This institutional shift stands as a grim monument to the woman who never returned from her watch. Even today, the Athabasca Tower serves as a reminder of the gaps in our official wilderness narratives. Stephanie's story highlights the clusters of high strangeness that continue to haunt the National Park Service. When the government changes its laws, it acknowledges a threat that they cannot fully explain. We are left wondering what could possibly snatch a person while leaving everything else perfectly untouched. The missing blanket remains a cryptic clue in a file that officials would rather see closed forever. Her absence created a ripple effect that still influences safety standards in the deep Canadian brush. This case validates the seriousness of the missing 411 phenomena through the weight of official reaction. Sometimes, the most chilling pattern in the missing 411 files isn't what vanished, but what remains. The wilderness occasionally returns what it took, but it does so in ways that defy medical science. Consider the 1975 disappearance of Charles McCulloch, a 19-year-old amateur photographer trekking through Crater Lake, Oregon. On the day Charles vanished, the landscape was buried under 7.5 feet of new snow. For a year, the mountain remained silent until searchers discovered his backpack 12 miles from the trailhead. What they found next suggests a sequence of events that challenges every law of logic and survival. Sitting on a remote log were McCulloch's unbuttoned jeans, placed as if he had simply stepped out. Even more unsettling was the discovery of his socks, still containing small, delicate foot bones inside. 12 feet away from the neatly placed clothing, the top of the young man's skull was located. How could these items be perfectly arranged atop 7 feet of snow that fell the day he disappeared? It is as if the victim was unzipped from the world, leaving his physical shell behind. This phenomenon of discarded clothing and footwear repeats across the clusters, baffling investigators and family members alike. In 2002, another bizarre scene unfolded when 20-year-old surveyor Christopher Tompkins vanished in Harris County, Georgia. At the exact spot where he was last seen standing, searchers found only 12 cents in coins. Nearby, one of Christopher's work boots was found inexplicably snagged high on a barbed wire fence. Months later, the search took a stranger turn when his second boot was recovered 900 yards away. Why would a person in distress remove their boots and socks while facing the elements alone? These cases represent the high strangeness David Paulides identifies as a recurring hallmark of the silent mass disaster. The National Park Service remains silent, offering no official explanation for these hauntingly precise, impossible crime scenes. If the harsh environment didn't cause this, and no human was involved, we must ask who did. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery of all took place within the quiet waters of Abenhoff Lake. The mystery began on a June night in 2005 when 20-2-year-old Todd Geib suddenly vanished. After attending a local keg party in Casanova, Michigan, Todd disappeared into the darkness of the night. At 12:51 in the morning, a friend received a final, cryptic phone call from the young man. Through the receiver, Todd spoke only a few chilling words, simply stating that he was in a field. Following that brief, confusing message, his phone went silent, and the search for Todd Geib officially began. For 3 long weeks, teams combed the surrounding landscape, focusing their efforts on the nearby Abenhoff Lake. Professional searchers and local volunteers scanned the water multiple times without finding any sign of the missing man. Despite their thorough investigations, the lake appeared empty, offering no clues to his whereabouts or his fate. Then, on July 2nd, the situation took a turn that would haunt the community for years to come. Searchers returned to the lake, only to find Todd's body bobbing right in the center of the water. He was not floating face down, as is typical in these tragic cases of accidental wilderness drowning. Instead, Todd was found in a vertical, upright position, appearing as if he were standing in the water. He looked like a human buoy, his head and shoulders visible above the surface in a defying posture. Investigators were baffled by how he could remain upright without his feet touching the deep lake bottom. This visual of high strangeness raised immediate questions about how he had arrived in that specific spot. How could a body appear in the middle of a lake that had been searched so many times? Even more unsettling was the official autopsy report that followed this bizarre discovery in the Michigan wilderness. While the medical examiner listed the cause of death as drowning, the physical evidence told a different story. Upon examination, investigators were shocked to find that Todd's lungs were completely dry and contained no water. This medical impossibility left experts struggling to explain how a man could drown without inhaling any liquid. Todd Geib was like a buoy in a lake that had been empty just the day before. His case remains a cornerstone of the missing 411 files due to its absolute lack of logical explanation. Every detail of his recovery points toward a reality that defies our standard understanding of search and rescue. The autopsy said he drowned, but his dry lungs suggest a much darker, more mysterious cause of death. At this point, we have to ask if there is a rational explanation we are simply missing. The skeptical mind naturally searches for common answers like animal attacks, serial killers, or tragic accidents. We want to believe there is a logical reason for every disappearance within our vast National Park Service. However, David Paulides meticulously filters the data to remove any cases with a clear, mundane explanation. If investigators find evidence of a struggle or human interference, that case is immediately discarded. Specifically, David Paulides excludes every report involving foul play to focus solely on the truly unexplained. This rigorous selection process ensures that the missing 411 clusters remain free from known criminal activity. Perhaps you suspect these victims were simply troubled souls seeking an escape into the deep wilderness. To counter this, David Paulides excludes any cases where mental illness or potential suicide are factors. By removing these variables, we are left with stable individuals who had every intention of returning home. Many skeptics point toward the apex predators that roam the rugged terrain of our beautiful national forests. Yet, the missing 411 criteria specifically exclude cases with clear signs of a predatory animal attack. If an animal was responsible, there would be blood, tracks, or a struggle left behind on the ground. In these high strangeness cases, the forest floor remains disturbingly pristine, as if the person just vanished. Water is another common danger, with rivers often claiming the lives of the unwary and the lost. David Paulides deliberately excludes cases involving drowning or missing persons being washed away by strong currents. If the body is found in water with fluid-filled lungs, it does not meet the criteria. This brings us back to cases like Aubenhoff Lake, where the evidence contradicts a standard drowning scenario. Relying on animal attack theories here is like trying to fit a square peg into a non-existent hole. Why would a natural predator leave a victim's clothes neatly unbuttoned and folded on a nearby rock? If these are simple drownings, why do we see a consistent lack of water in the lungs? The silence surrounding these cases is not a lack of effort, but a lack of physical evidence. When you exclude everything that makes sense, you are left looking at things that truly do not. If it isn't man, and it isn't beast, we must examine reports bordering on the absolute impossible. Witnesses describe a dead zone where the birds stop singing and the very wind goes still. They call this phenomenon the silence, a terrifying moment where nature itself seems to freeze entirely. In that absolute quiet, some have reported seeing strange distortions in the thin mountain air. The silence is like the world holding its breath before a sudden, unseen strike occurs. David Paulides began noticing these atmospheric patterns within the vast clusters of the missing 411 cases. One of the most compelling accounts comes from Jan Maccabee, wife of optical physicist Bruce Maccabee. While bow hunting in the Ohio wilderness during 2010, Jan witnessed something truly defying any explanation. She described an odd distortion, a humanoid figure that seemed to blend perfectly with the trees. This was not a trick of light, but a physical presence bending reality around itself. What kind of predator can distort the very light particles around its own physical form? Similar high strangeness emerged in 2016 when Scott Carpenter uploaded his own disturbing wilderness footage. Carpenter's video appeared to capture a Bigfoot, yet the figure seemed almost blurred or cloaked. These reports suggest a level of biology that exceeds our current scientific understanding of the natural world. The National Park Service remains silent on these anomalies, leaving researchers, like Paulides, to investigate alone. Some theorize these entities use advanced camouflage, much like the elite green berets, but far superior. Even infrared cameras sometimes fail to capture these figures, as if they exist between dimensions. Why do the animals know to go quiet, long before a person suddenly vanishes forever? Perhaps the forest creatures sense a frequency or a visual shift that humans simply cannot perceive. Whether it is a cloaked figure or something else entirely, these accounts remain disturbingly consistent. We are forced to ask if we are being hunted by something we cannot truly see. Each report adds another layer of mystery to the growing file of the missing 411 phenomenon. If these distortions are real, the safety of our national parks is a hauntingly fragile illusion. The silence isn't just a lack of sound, it's a predator's most effective hunting tool. Imagine standing in a forest where the air feels thick, heavy, and suddenly devoid of life. In those moments, the very fabric of our reality seems to stretch and thin dangerously. These are the zones where people walk into the woods and are never heard from again. We are left with fragments of stories that point toward a chilling, invisible truth. The accounts of cloaked figures provide a terrifying clue to the heart of the missing 411 mystery. Whether it is a cloaked figure or something else entirely, the accounts are disturbingly consistent. When you step back from the individual stories, a map of something much larger begins to emerge. After decades of research, David Paulides has cataloged thousands of mysterious deaths and disappearances in our wilderness. His work through the Missing 411 series reveals a chilling reality hidden within our National Park Service. It is no longer a collection of isolated incidents, but a documented wave of high strangeness. The data shows that these vanishings are not scattered randomly across the vast, empty North American continent. Instead, Paulides identified specific clusters where the frequency of disappearances defies any rational or statistical explanation. These hotspots frequently appear near the Great Lakes, where the water seems to hold its own secrets. From Michigan's dense forests to Superior's rugged shores, the patterns identified by Paulides remain undeniably consistent. Even more perplexing is the recurring presence of granite formations at many of these documented disappearance sites. Is there something about the land itself, or perhaps the minerals beneath, that draws people into silence? These geographic commonalities suggest that the environment is a participant in this long, unfolding mystery. Beyond the locations, the state of the victims found after these events raises even more haunting questions. In over 1,000 documented cases, searchers and coroners have struggled to find any clear cause of death. Healthy individuals simply stop existing, leaving behind bodies that offer no clues to their final moments. Even specialized units like the Green Berets find themselves baffled by the total lack of physical evidence. It is as if the wilderness has a preference, selecting victims and then returning them without explanation. Using advanced tools like infrared sensors often yields nothing but more questions in these silent, wooded zones. The patterns are like a connected dots drawing, where the final image is still hidden in the dark. Are these locations just a coincidence? Or are we looking at a predatory force we cannot see? We are left with a phenomenon that we can name, but we still cannot truly explain. The data points to a reality so unsettling that many choose to ignore the map entirely. Every new case added to the missing 411 files only deepens the mystery of our most protected lands. When investigators find no struggle and no tracks, the standard theories of animal attacks quickly fall apart. The silence that follows these disappearances is a heavy weight that families must carry for a lifetime. We must ask ourselves if we are even looking for the right thing when we enter these woods. So, where does this leave us? After exploring the chilling patterns of these missing souls, will you look at the woods the same way the next time you go for a hike? The data gathered by David Paulides suggests a reality far stranger than simple animal attacks or accidents. We must acknowledge that the missing 411 cases represent a genuine mystery haunting our protected lands. Our national parks are treasures, yet they hold secrets the National Park Service cannot easily explain. Yosemite is a national park in the United States that remains a primary focus of these investigations. Like Yosemite, Yellowstone is a national park in the United States where the unexpected often occurs. These iconic landscapes offer beauty, but they also host clusters of high strangeness that defy logic. You should still go and visit these places, for they are truly the crown jewels of nature. However, you must remain aware that the silence of the woods can be a deceptive warning. Are we the observers in the woods? Or are we the ones being silently observed from afar? Remember that the forest is a house with many rooms. Just make sure you know the exit. To stay safe, you should always stay on the designated path and never, ever hike alone. Even experts like Green Berets have been caught off guard by the sudden onset of the silence. Infrared technology sometimes fails to capture what lurks just beyond the reach of our human senses. Is the silence you feel just the wind, or is it a warning of something yet unseen? We must remain vigilant, carrying the knowledge of those who vanished into the thin mountain air. These stories are not meant to terrify, but to prepare you for the variables of the wild. Every step into the deep wilderness requires a level of respect for the forces we don't understand. The patterns are real, the clusters are mapped, and the danger remains a silent, shifting shadow. Perhaps the most important tool you can carry is an awareness of the world's high strangeness. As you walk among the ancient trees, keep your companions close and your senses even sharper. Respect the boundaries of the natural world, for the line between safety and disaster is very thin. We may never fully uncover why people vanish, but we can choose to be better prepared. Let the beauty of the parks inspire you, while the mysteries keep you anchored to reality. Because in the wild, the line between a beautiful afternoon and a silent disaster is incredibly thin. Will the woods feel different now that you know it hides within the quiet, empty spaces?